I spent 14 hours a day sitting either in a truck or an airplane or at my desk. And so I needed something to force me to actually get up and move again.
Chicken trucking, big wheels there humming, high rate of fuel consumption, missing mama, needing loving, rolling with the wailing sound, running like a southern shaker. I don't need no 40 acres to turn this rig around.
Welcome back to Trucking Fitness Radio, the number one driver's health and fitness podcast in the world. My name is Mark Manera. I'm the founder and CEO of the Trucking Fitness Company, and I'm also a doctor of physical therapy. Today, we've got an awesome guest on the podcast, Brian, aka your DOT guy. We're going to talk about his experience of trying to live a healthier life on the road and also DOT physicals and the problems a lot of drivers have going through that process, and hopefully how we can help you get ahead of those problems. But before we jump into the podcast, did you know you can be a guest on the show? We are having drivers come on the podcast, talk about their story, get actionable advice and tips on how you can live a healthier life on the road. Or if you already figured it out and you just want a platform to help and show other drivers that it's possible, we want to be that platform for you. So if you want to come on, tell your story, tell your weight loss journey, tell your story of how you're crushing workouts out on the road or eating healthy and meal prepping out on the road, go to the link in the bio or go to our website at www.truckinfit.com/radio. So truckinfit.com/radio. Fill out our show application. It takes 3 minutes and we want you to be on the podcast. But today I am excited to have Brian on the show. So Brian, welcome to the Trucking Fitness Radio.
Thank you, Mark. My pleasure to be here. I'm happy you invited me here. It's twisted of fate because, or turn of the tables. I had you on my show twice already. Now I'm glad to be on yours.
Yeah, and I will have links in the show notes if people want to check out the podcast that we did with at DOT Compliance, and then also your other show. And I guess before we get too deep into this, give a little background, introduce yourself, give a little background for everyone listening.
Happy to, Mark. Happy to. I am a third generation professional driver. At one point, there were 27 people in my family that made their living, their day-to-day living, operating commercial vehicles, whether we were bus drivers, dump trucks, or tractor trailers. My background is diesel mechanics, towing, and auto transport. My father and my grandfather were mechanics. My father had a truck stop. I came up around trucks at a very early age. I was the young kid running around pumping fuel in the 80s, cleaning windows, doing anything I could to have an excuse to play with the truck. And here we are 30 some years later. I still hold a valid Class A CDL. I am still on the road several days a week. I work with a company that sells tow trucks and car haulers. So I go out and deliver new trucks to the customers, train them how to use them. I speak at about a dozen trade shows a year, which led into this whole other side where I am a DOT compliance specialist. I help small business truckers and non-traditional fleets stay compliant with all those crazy regulations out there. And I bring it to you from a point of view where I do it. I've done it. I've been in the seat alongside of you. As you can tell, if you're watching this on a video version, I am sitting in a vehicle today. I'm just coming back from Detroit, Michigan. I am on the road. I do this every day along with you. And I've faced some of the same health challenges trying to stay healthy when you're traveling between truck stops and rest areas and airports and being on the road. So I've been there, been a car hauler most of my career. So I used to be very active and now I'm not. And well, that's why I reached out to Mark here to find something to help.
Yeah, 27 people in your family in the trucking industry. That's crazy. Now, did you so I guess out of high school, did you go right to trucking? Did you go a different route and then you fell back into trucking? How did that go?
Well, I never intended to actually be active in the behind the wheel side of the trucking industry. Growing up, we had a truck stop at the north end of what is now the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area on the Pennsylvania, New Jersey border. And I watched my mom and dad fight with the federal government from the late 70s until 1984 when they turned US Route 209 into a national park and put us out of business. So my intent was to become an attorney and fight for the rights of small business people that were being taken advantage of. Life has a funny way of putting you on a different path, and I ended up needing to go to work, not school, right out of high school. So yes, a short answer for you, Mark. I obtained my articulated license, my Class A CDL, 2 months after graduating high school at 18 years old. And I started working for a local school bus contractor as a school bus driver and a diesel mechanic in their shop, which is where I was first introduced to safety and regulation and all that, because that's a very safety oriented industry, and we were facing explosive growth. So at 19 years old, I became a CDL third-party examiner in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, barely wet behind the ears, no real experience, and now I'm examining and issuing commercial driver's licenses. And I became a driver trainer, so I went to a lot of schooling and really understood that there's a lot more to this business. That said, I wasn't content with buses, so as soon as I turned 21 and could cross state lines, I took a job with an auto auction just across the river in New York and started hauling cars, driving tow trucks. And that led to my own fleet for approximately 15 years and put me where I am here today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then where did the transition from tow trucks and car hauling to you're speaking at events, you're now moving to the DOT compliance side of things?
2008, 2009 was a very rough time to be an auto transporter. The economy dropped out, car sales dropped out, repossessions spiked through the roof, but the rate that the shippers wanted to pay to move vehicles was awful. It was abysmal. And I had never been a public performer. I've been a tech geek all my life. I met my wife at a workshop for drama kids. I was tech, she was talent on stage. And so I wanted to do something a little different. And I had started having people ask me when I had the car haulers, hey, how'd you get where you are? What do you do? My driver did this and got in trouble. And how did you handle it? Because you've got 14 trucks. What do you do? And I never was the one to sit in the office. I was out walking the auction lot, driving the truck right alongside everybody. So I started just naturally giving advice to people and said, hey, there might be a business model here as everything else is falling apart. And at the same time, natural gas exploration exploded in Pennsylvania, the Marcellus shale play. And I wanted to transition into something a little different, but I needed to learn about it. And I met a DOT cop who's a good personal friend of mine today. And he asked me to come speak at an event for the oil drillers. And it was my first real big public speaking. We had 300 people there for my first time I ever did a public speaking event. It's because I knew the stuff inside and out. I could say certain things that he couldn't say, being a Pennsylvania state trooper. And I found out I loved it. I enjoyed it. I walked out of that room with a contract from a very large utility company. And that was 13 years ago now. And that was the beginning of Fleet Compliance Solutions, my consulting company, which I ran along with the trucking company until about 5 years ago. We lost our son to a suicide when he was 22 years old. And my wife and I decided that since we had no heir apparent to leave this business to, my oldest daughter is a biochemist and my youngest daughter is I never can say it right, but she works with an eye doctor, ophthalmologist tech or something. She's an eye doctor. Yeah. There you go. And so they weren't interested.
My dad's an optometrist. So
cool.
My mom is an optometrist too. But I got eye doctors in the family. But yeah,
cool.
Sorry, go on.
So there was nobody to leave the business to. And so my wife and I decided to sell. And in 2018, we retired from owning trucks, and I could concentrate on consulting full time. A friend of mine asked me to help him out with a truck dealership, and I've been doing that for 5 years. But I got introduced to a couple of trade magazines, and that's where I ended up at all these trade shows and events. Was, as you can tell, I love to talk and can turn a 2-second answer into a 2-minute answer. It led to speaking, and I like to teach. I've got the heart of a teacher, and so I like to help people, and that's where it all came from. It is, I've always been the guy that people could come to and ask for advice, and I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm going to back it up with facts and figures, and I'm not going to judge you based on the question you ask me, because we all had to start somewhere. We all had to learn somewhere. I
was about to just say the same thing of every time I've asked you a question and every time conversation we've had, it's been very authentic, and it's been very, hey, this is what I know, this is the stats. And yeah, I really appreciate it. And I can see how, people getting up on stage, and talking to groups, they love that too. And again, I want to say thank you for sharing. And I'm sorry about your son. And I know that's a tough, obviously a really tough situation. I appreciate you sharing that and being open about that. And I guess kind of moving to, we're all about health and wellness and the fitness side of trucking here. And walk me through, starting, I guess, at 21 years old as a car hauler, and then moving to owning your own fleet, and now where you're at. Walk me through kind of the lifeline of the effects you've seen with your health as in the trucking industry.
That's a great point to ask about. I like most young people, I didn't think about my health. I just went out and ran hard and did what I had to. And car hauling is different than most other forms of trucking because we're very physically active. Those 9 cars don't just park themselves on your truck, at least not yet. With automated vehicles, it's coming soon, but they don't just park themselves on a truck. So I used to be able to bench press several hundred pounds and run and walk miles a day without even thinking about it. I used to sprint back and forth because when you're hauling cars, you park your truck in the truck lot and you walk the dealership or you walk the auction or the railhead, unless you're working for a union company. Then they have car pullers that bring them right to the back of your truck. But for me, I would walk 6, 7, sometimes 10 miles in a day moving cars. So I had my exercise, climb up and down the truck. When I first started doing this, we were using chains and bars, not straps and hand done ratchets. So you're working your arms, you're working your chest muscles, your legs, you're healthy. You can eat 4,000 calories a day and not gain a pound. And then you hit your 30s and your body doesn't metabolize things as well, and you still want to eat like you're 20, and you still want to not sleep like you're 20. And so I was very fortunate that for most of my career, I was very active. I did get up to about 250 pounds while I was still an active car hauler and heavy duty tow truck operator, but it was just a little bit extra weight here and there. It wasn't impeding my life. I could sleep fine. I could work. I didn't get winded and exhausted just walking into the truck stop. And then 5 years ago, when I semi-retired and stopped like that, like turning a light switch off, all that physical activity, I ballooned up to 327 pounds. And that's where I was when I met you. And I think a lot of it is I transitioned. I had an outlet for my stress by exercising when I was running the car haulers and doing the physical labor. And a lot of it is I drive a lot, but I also fly a lot, and my schedule's really crazy. I'm eating airport and fast food, just like the truck, like we all do when we're on the road. And I don't get the activity. I spend 14 hours a day sitting either in a truck or an airplane or at my desk. And so I needed something to force me to actually get up and move again.
Yeah. And, I guess, what have you seen be the biggest struggle on your end? Is it the lack of, options of going and exercising? Is it the food? What's been the biggest struggle for you?
Well, I believe the options to exercise are there. I'm going to say food, because with 30 years in the trucking industry and more, if you count when I was a kid, I remember when my father had his truck stop, we had a 24-hour diner right next door to us. You could get real, well prepared food, not preservative filled fast food. I remember when truck stops had 24-hour a day restaurants, and a lot of things have changed just in the last 10 or 15 years since we introduced the electronic logging device, and or AOBRD for those before, and when we set this rigid 14-hour clock. So I have a point I'm making here. When we no longer could just pause our day when we needed, so we could stop and sit at the lunch counter and talk to our friends and eat a real homemade meal, not a hamburger that's 2,000 calories of fried junk. The food options used to be a lot easier to eat healthy. And I understand why the truck stop operators don't have them, because the drivers don't take or don't have the time allocated to them to do this anymore. So the truck stop operator can't support that many square foot for a restaurant when they're not selling. They put in the fast food because we're looking for something quick. And yes, there are healthy options there, but I think that's the biggest change I've seen in 30 years is the quality of food. Because exercising, I just have to tell myself, don't be lazy. Don't park right in front of the parking lot, park in the back and walk. There, you can always walk. Walking is good for you. And as I found out with your program now, there's a lot more that I can do than just walk around the truck stop, because there are safety concerns and embarrassment concerns. But
Totally.
the hardest has been food, good quality food that fits into your very limited schedule when you're trying to comply with hours of service.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I hear drivers talk about all the time. And, we've had this discussion, when you came on for the onboarding call and just through some of the other podcasts we've done. But, the mindset I take with drivers is instead of, getting down on yourself saying, hey, I don't have any quality food, the diners aren't there, I can't sit down, all I have is McDonald's, all I have is Burger King, or, grabbing snacks at the truck stop. I look at it as, okay, your health, or how healthy your current diet is somewhere right in the middle of the spectrum. How can we just push the needle a little bit and make it 10-15% healthier, and making just small changes there and get the ball rolling. And I think once the ball or the tires are turning, you start seeing other opportunities too, and you get momentum, and it's the flywheel effect, right? You get it going and it just keeps running. And I think the getting it started is the hardest part for a lot of people. But I did want to talk to you. You're what, you said about 3 weeks in, 4 weeks into working with the trucking fitness company. You're down 4 pounds. That's awesome. I'd love to hear your experience so far, and kind of what you felt, and yeah, what your thoughts are on the program.
Well, yeah, I'm in between 3 and 4 weeks in. And the thing I love the most about this program, and for a guy that preaches compliance and routine, is it has compelled me to start building a routine. I look at the app when I wake up in the morning and I try to follow it. Occasionally I wake up a little late or my schedule's just really messed up, but I try. You see my compliance. I try real hard to follow it. What I love about the trucking fitness program and your app specifically is it's made me think a little bit different. When I have to take that picture of my meal and I know that somebody is going to look at it, when I'm ordering something, I'm like, that doesn't, no, that's not a good choice. And he's not going to like seeing that on my meal plan. So it's made me have that accountability partner that I don't have anywhere else in my life. And maybe some people have a great support network where they have a buddy that wants to help them with this, and that's awesome. But when we don't, because we're so alone out here on the road, even when we have a great family, you're still by yourself some days, sometimes weeks on end. It's nice to have that accountability in the palm of your hand. And that is what I have enjoyed the most about the program.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's funny because the whole purpose of that is I don't tell any driver to, at the start, we talk about, the first thing I tell drivers is, hey, let's cut out drinking your calories for the most part, right? I think
Hmm.
here and there have it, it's okay. But let's try to cut out, drink 0 calorie beverages and then just take pictures of what you're eating. And it's the subconscious, like what you just said, where I don't even have to try to say, hey, you need to eat healthier. Automatically, by doing the act of, oh man, I'm gonna have to take a photo of this and post it, you're gonna eat a little bit healthier. I'm glad to hear that. And I think what's been I know you've been very compliant with the workouts and doing that at home, if it's in the hotel room or if it's at your house when you're at home. How have those been going?
The workouts are good. It made me realize just how out of shape I am, because when you look at the individual exercises, especially on the first level, and I'm now on 3.7 or something, so you modify it as I progress, but they don't seem like they should make a difference. They really don't. I mean, sitting there and just bending over and using your body weight to do a crunch, or sitting down and standing up, something that we don't think about, but you do it, you repeat it 10, 12, 15 times, then take a break and do it again. I'm winded at the end of a lot of these workouts, and I've just now started using the resistance band. So I'm just using my body weight, and it made me realize the first couple of days I hated you. I thought you were trying to kill me, and they were easy. And now it has made me realize, wow, I did that. I'm 3 weeks in, and I didn't get out of breath walking up the stairs when I got home today or yesterday or wherever. It was a nice change, and I can move better. Oh, I don't hurt. You're teaching stretches. And I thought I was stretching well all these years, because I stretch every morning when I wake up, and get out of the truck every 2, 3 hours and stretch. But I wasn't stretching properly. And now I'm learning how to do that the right way. So really, it's like having a physical trainer at the gym without having to go to the gym to do it. And your workouts are simple, but they really do. I feel different. I made the mistake of doing your workout one time early on in the program, just before I was laying down to go to bed for the night. And that was a bad thing to do. And so now I get up at 4 o'clock most mornings, and by about 4:30, I'm doing my workout, and it works out real well for me.
Yeah, and I think everyone's different. Some people do work out right before they go to bed and they just knock out and they go to bed. I personally, if I work out and then try to go to sleep, I'm like locked in. I'm like energized, ready to go. So you got to figure out what's personalized for you. And I didn't realize you normally do a stretching routine every morning. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that my entire life. I learned early on to stretch, but I guess I didn't learn how to do it properly. I would do a couple shoulder exercises, couple calf and thigh and back stretches, but I would just do it for a couple of seconds and be done, not hold it 10 or 15 seconds and repeat it 3 or 4 times. And I wasn't getting all my muscle groups either. And so I've been doing that ever since I really started needing to bend over and crawl under cars and tie cars down, because I would start to get muscle cramps if I just jumped out of the truck and immediately went to hard labor. So I do them like a warm up. And
Yeah.
your program does a great job now of getting me warmed up in the morning. And the energy part, I have noticed that I have more energy. I really thought it was going to suck to lose a half an hour of sleep or half an hour of my day, and my productivity would go down, but it's not a wasted half an hour. It's 20 to 22 minutes to do the workout routine plus the exercise of the day. So I got a half an hour invested in this, and I actually feel more productive 3 weeks in than I was 3 weeks ago. I feel more energized. I'm drinking less coffee just by doing exercises. So that's a good thing. That's a win for me.
That's huge. And that's the biggest thing that a lot of the drivers that in our program say is, you're not going to see the scale move day one, but you will see some mental changes of, I feel more energized. I feel better. I just feel, more woken up in general. And that's awesome. That's amazing to hear. And, one of the other, topics that I wanted to talk to you because of your DOT compliance expertise is, the DOT physical, which for a lot of drivers is a scary time of the year or of, the 2 year period, however long their card that they were given is. And, I'd love to hear kind of when you're talking to drivers or, when you're looking at the data on your end, what are some of the biggest struggles drivers have when it comes to their health of, why they're getting handed a temporary card or why they're failing a DOT physical?
Great question. I work with a lot of truck drivers, and when we employed truck drivers, we had the same problems that I see now as a consultant. And we tend to treat ourselves as a unit of production. So we just go, go, go to get the job done. We wouldn't think about not maintaining our equipment, our truck, but we fail to maintain our body. And so when you bring yourself into the doctor for your DOT physical, it's like bringing your truck into the garage for its annual safety inspection or pulling into the scale house to get the DOT to inspect you. You need to maintain yourself. And I know myself with my physical, I was fine, even up to 250 pounds, 2 year card, no problem. They wanted to test me for obstructive sleep apnea once. They did. I passed the test. I do not have OSA. And then all of a sudden, when my weight, just a couple extra pounds, a little less physical activity, my blood pressure went up. I became diagnosed as hypertensive. I ended up with a 1 year medical card now because of that. And I know that if I get my weight under control, that will go away. I'm probably borderline should do another sleep test for OSA because of the weight. That makes a big difference. And if I keep my weight under control, that will go away. And I'll get my 2 year card back, and I won't stress going to the doctor because we're not allowed to doctor shop. We are allowed to get a second opinion if you get that 3-month medical card, or you don't agree with your your DOT doctor's opinion, but you have to answer all the questions exactly the same. And when I had to change doctors because I had a doctor that didn't think I was healthy, my mind said, no, something is wrong here, Brian. The doctor is probably right. Don't change a doctor. And I've had that same discussion with many truck drivers that want to go to the lick 'em and stick 'em rubber stamp doc in a box, that are not the doc in the box, not the big chain, but the little guy that takes sympathy and doesn't want to take their career away. Well, that's not safe for any of us on the road. There's a reason we have medical standards. And so what I have found from my experience and from previous employees, friends, and drivers I consult with is the little changes. If we can at least stop the progression of the weight, we won't go from that 1 month to that 3-month temporary card where you may not drive again. And besides just being here to see your daughter get married or your grandson get born or something like that, most truck drivers, we live paycheck to paycheck, and we can't afford even 2 weeks off the road to get our health under control. But that's exactly what's going to happen if you can't pass your DOT physical. You're going to be forced to take that time off the road. You're going to stress out even more. You stress out, you're not going to lose weight. So little steps as a preemptive or preventative maintenance measure, I think makes a big difference. And blood pressure is probably the number one reason people are denied or given a restricted medical card. And the blood pressure standard for a DOT physical is actually fairly high as it is. If you got 180/90, your blood pressure is pretty bad already. You shouldn't be that high, but that's still permissible for a 2-year card.
That's
Blood pressure.
crazy.
It
Wow.
is.
Wow.
And blood pressure will definitely come under control with dietary changes and just a little bit of cardiovascular exercise. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor, but this is just what I have experienced because before I was diagnosed hypertensive, and I still was desperately trying to hang on to my 2-year card because, now it's a pain in the butt that we have to submit the card to our state driver's license agency, and otherwise your license is downgraded and all of that. When I was desperately trying to hang on to my 2-year card, I would eat all the good food for a week before my physical. I would walk and exercise, and it worked until the day it didn't work anymore. And there are no shortcuts to our health. But back to your question, high blood pressure is probably the number one failure I see on cards. And then if your doctor's doing it right, you pee in a cup and they test you for protein and sugar in your urine. And sadly, for a lot of truck drivers, myself included, for many years, that was the only time we had any type of lab work. The only time we saw a doctor was when we went in for our DOT physical. And it shouldn't be that way. The doctors are our friends. They're not our enemies. But that's the one of the other major failures for DOT medical cards are they find unacceptable sugar levels in your urine and diagnose you as pre-diabetic. And thankfully we have that, because a couple of my friends that you wouldn't even think might be pre-diabetic have been discovered on their DOT physical to be, and they've been able to get proper treatment and stop the progression of it, because diabetes is a very seriously debilitating disease that we can control in most cases. So your blood pressure, your blood sugar are two of the areas that give you the most trouble with a DOT physical, and they're both manageable by diet and exercise, followed by the one that is the hot topic in the press in the last couple of years, obstructive sleep apnea. I'm not going to get into how they make their decision whether you should have a screening or not, because the process is a little arbitrary, but it is a legitimate concern. If you're not resting well, you can have micro sleeps. You driving a commercial motor vehicle at 60 miles an hour, you are traveling, oh crap, I had the number on the top of my head because I teach a defensive driving class, but basically you're traveling 130 some feet per second. So if you have a 1 or 2 second micro sleep, you have missed a football field or more of road in front of you. It's as bad as or worse than being distracted by your cell phone and texting or something while you're driving. And if we're snoring, if we're having other issues where we might have sleep, sometimes that's just brought on by being overweight, and it can be corrected just by losing weight. I have a couple airline pilot friends that after they got serious about weight loss, their sleep apnea went away and they came off their CPAP machine and right on back to a normal airline physical. So these are all just issues I've noticed that are the major problems with a DOT physical.
Yeah, and to talk about sleep apnea, yeah, I mean there's definitely factors and reasons why people have sleep apnea that are outside of their weight, but being overweight, having lack of cardiovascular and moving definitely are contributing factors. And when I talk about to people and just hearing drivers talk, diabetes, high blood pressure, and sleep apnea are the big three that they're scared about too. And what I don't think there is really a better thing that they could be doing on a day-to-day basis than finding a way to eat a little bit healthier and getting and moving and exercising. And I always tell drivers that I think a lot of the drivers I talk to are so tunnel vision on I just need to get today done and I need to move from here to here, that it's really hard to find that 20 minutes a day to get some movement, or it's really hard to take 30 extra seconds at the truck stop or at the fast food restaurant and find a healthier option, because you have that mindset of go, go, go. But they don't take a step back and say, well, man, if I, spend 20 minutes today, or I guess on the flip side, if I don't spend that time today and I let my health just keep creeping that down towards those unhealthy things and an unhealthy lifestyle, then that might be 20 years from now. That might mean I get cut off early of my career and I lose 5 years, 10 years off of the back end of my trucking capacity, and I have to, forced to retire, or I can't comply, I can't get my DOT physical, I can't pass my DOT physical. And, you might lose hundreds of thousands of dollars on the back end that you're not thinking about because you're just thinking about today. And I think you hit the nail on the head there of it's one or two small changes today can make, a lifetime of changes if done consistently over years and years. And I really appreciate you talking that, sharing some of your expertise, and I really also appreciate you opening up and talking about your story in the industry and with your health so far. And I guess to end the podcast, you know if you could share one piece of advice with other drivers out on the road about living a healthy life on the road, what would you tell them?
I would have to tell them we plan our trips. We have a roadmap for where we're getting with our truck. Let's make a roadmap for our life. We don't do this just to do it. Maybe one or two truck drivers do it because they absolutely just love being behind the wheel of a truck and that's all they want to do. They don't have a family life. We do this for the people we love in our family and the people around us. And so have that roadmap. Take a few minutes and make a plan for what your life is going to look like 5, 15, 20 years down the road. You talk about losing hundreds of thousands of dollars of income. Well, how about our shortened life expectancy as a commercial driver? I don't know about you, but I have 5 grandsons that I'm absolutely adoring, and I want to be able to go fishing with them and take them on trips and all the other cool stuff. And so grandpa has to be able to get healthy to be able to do that. And so we plan every other aspect of our job to get the job done. And don't tell me we don't have time. We complain about the tension time at shippers and receivers. We can sit in the privacy of the cab of our truck and exercise, and we can make this happen. We just have to, all I did is really sacrifice a half an hour of screen time on my phone and converted it to exercise. It can be done. So my one piece of advice is think about what your future, what you want, and how to get there. And are you on the right path to get there with your health? Because nobody wants to be found dead in the cab of their truck and not be able to, then you can't do anything for your spouse, your kids, your brother, whoever it is that's important to you in your life. So make a plan for your life so that you have a life outside of driving the truck.
I love that. I love that. And I completely agree. And Brian, thank you so much for coming on and talking and telling us some of your wisdom. And for everyone out there listening, if you have a story to tell about, living a healthy life on the road, or you just want some help and just want to talk with us and have a platform where, hey, you can get some advice, go to the link in the show notes, truckandfit.com/radio, truckinfit.com/radio. Fill out the show application. We'll get you on. In the meantime, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Trucking, big wheels there humming, high rate of fuel consumption, missing mama, needing loving, rolling with the wailing sound. Running like the southern shaker, I don't need no 40 acres to turn this rig around. I'm jacked up like a Chevy, but ain't heading to the levee. Lord have mercy, say